Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. Over the weekend, I had the privilege and the honor of going to Decker Lake. Decker Lake is a juvenile prison out here in Utah. I'm working with the Day One guys, Day One Utah with Dad, Solo, Mike, Spider, and Rock. And for a minute, they kind of had kicked me off of the project because some people that we were working with weren't really comfortable with me because of my background and because of the way I speak. And the way I speak, meaning I'm very direct and forward. And when I hear bullshit, I'm gonna call it out, because if we're getting to a partnership that we're supposed to help the youth, then we should be able to have honest conversations about how the system works, what the system's been doing, and the things that need to be corrected. But somewhere along the line, somebody felt offended by some of the things that I said, so they asked me to fall back. And, but that's another story for another day. But I'm grateful. Before I start this video, I just want to, thank my brothers from the Day One Utah for speaking up for me and for, getting me back into the program, because I'm really passionate about what I'm trying to do. And the reason that I'm passionate about trying to help the youth take a different path is because I have firsthand experience of the misery of where I've been in the last 2+ decades. And the places that I've been, the things that I've gone through, I wouldn't wish that for my worst enemy. So for me to be able to participate in a program that is able to share my story with the youth, and maybe, I'm sure some of these youngsters, they already have a certain idea of what they want to be or what they want to do as far as this life goes. They're trying to move up the ladder of their gang, their organization, eventually become the big homie, the shot caller, and all that. And I'm not here to tell them what they're doing is wrong, that they shouldn't be doing this or that. My objective is just to share my story and let them understand that the choices that you're about to make were the same choices that I made 30 years ago. And it didn't lead me into, a very happy, successful place. I always, I tell you guys, I spent 24 years, I've been in the USP and all that. But I don't share that as like my credentials. It's something that I'm proud of. I'm not proud of being in prison. Prison for me is full of failures. People that did not succeed in the things they were trying to do out here, and they end up in there. But I do feel that I can have a sense of pride for surviving that environment and be able to come home and have my mind and my soul intact. But my message to the youth is just, you're going to make your choices, man. But I want you to do it with an open eye, with a full understanding of where these things are going to lead you. And people always tell you only leads you to two places, and they're not wrong. Both of them is a box. One box is 6 feet beneath your feet, and the other box got gun towers around it. But at the end of the day, like, what is it all for, right? Is your life and your freedom really worth all the years you spent in prison or the homies that you've lost? And I fully understand that there's some people that grow up in certain environment where their choice is limited, you know. But for those that have an opportunity to move away from that life, I I hope that my my life experience, my story can inspire them to think different, you know. So when I was in Decker Lake yesterday, or not yesterday, but Saturday, today's Monday, I had an opportunity to talk to four youngsters. And, from the story that we shared, they're Southsiders. So I shared where I've been, what I've done, and all that. And they asked me some questions about the people that I know, these, and I gave them some of the names of the people that I know. And these guys know of them through books that was been written about them. So one of them asked me like, "Oh, so you rock with us when you're in there?" Meaning, do I ride with the Southsiders when I'm in the joint? I told him no. I rock with individuals. I rock with friends, people that I build a relationship with, people that I respect, people that I care about. And I also explained to them, yeah, I have friends, people that I consider friends that are black hands, people that I consider friends that are from the Nostra Familia, which those two entities are enemies. I have friends from, some of my friends are Crips and Bloods and GDs and Vice Lords and Kings and all and everything in between. Because in the penitentiary, I'm by myself. Yeah, I get classified as an other. Um, I'm in a car, Asian Islander car, but we're not a gang. And our car is just a collective of individuals that pretty much think for ourselves. We're not bound by any oath, by any vows. And if you follow me on my YouTube, some of them ain't worth a shit, but there's few of them are very good men and are still my friend till this day. Some of them I met back in Lompoc in 2001, and they're home now, and we still send each other text messages and holler at each other and see what's up and all that. But but I'm trying to explain to these youngsters that, because one of the things that I do know is that as far as like the Latin gangs go, Mexican gangs go, it's harder for those kids to pivot and move out because those gangs, there's is a business. The business is narcotics. So they need bodies generation after generation to keep pushing their stuff. And for me, like I said, I don't judge on how people make a living because, like, who am I to judge, right? I've done some crazy stuff pursuing that money, so I'm not here to do that. But for me, it's just that you have a lot of these youngsters that idolize things because they see the fancy cars, because they see the girls, and they hear all the glorifications, but it's misguided because as great as all those things are, they're not being shared and told about the misery of the other aspect of that life. And the misery is you can't never go nowhere without having to watch your back. You're always going to wonder who's going to run up on you. The misery is that you might lose your life. The misery is you might get caught up and lose your freedom. You might get lucky, it's only a few years, 5 years, 10 years, but then you might get hit upside the head. First time round, on your first trip, it might be a life sentence, an elbow, never coming home. I've shared with them that even though I had 26 years And even though I'm 47 years old right now, I still consider myself lucky because I have friends in there that are never coming home, that are stuck. And, that's what I want to emphasize to the kids out here. I know my videos, kids can't watch it because it's not made for kids. But, if you guys do watch my videos, I would ask you to share it with some of these youngsters, man. Let them give them a glimpse of the reality of what this life really entails, and not all the little snippets of all the fun stuff. Because, like I said, all the good stuff is a very small percentage compared to the rest of it. I've shared with you, I've been hit in the head with a hammer. I've been stabbed up. I've been in riots. And I've been in situations where I could have easily caught a new case and not make it back home. Once you're behind that wall, it's like you're in a twilight zone or Groundhog's Day. Because it's the same thing every day, whether it's a Monday or a Sunday. Same food every week, same people around you, same routine. And if you don't go in there with a strong mind, it can easily make you crazy. I've had some friends that didn't want to do the 30 years that they were getting and chose to end their own life. I have other friends that, like saying again, didn't want to do the years that they were given, so they went out there and act a fool and got their life ended by somebody. The penitentiary is a place of absolute misery. I didn't have as hard of a time as others. I was able to maneuver around, build relationship, conduct myself a certain way where I was respected and build friendships that lasted. And for the most part, every opportunity I had, I try to find some sunlight in that darkness. I like to think myself as a positive and happy person. So I love to smile and I love to laugh and goof around and joke around and all the rest of it, because I don't want to ever sit down and dwell on my predicament. I didn't want to sit there when I first got in and think about all the years ahead before I even get an opportunity to come home. I did that once and that shit took me to a dark place. Just imagine yourself 20 years old and knowing that you're not going to even have an opportunity to get back out until your mid 40s. That thought is a very depressing thought. And like I said, one time I allowed myself to do that. And as soon as I thought about it, I just had this dark feeling come over me. And a sense of panic, a sense of hopelessness. When I was in Victorville, I was still fighting my case. And I had an opportunity to get a new trial. I waited like 6 months for the response from the court. And when we finally got the response from the courts back, my judge at the time was like, nah, we don't need a hearing. I don't believe him. And just shut down my case. Like everybody in the system was shocked by her ruling. even the district attorney, of course, my lawyer, and myself. But when I read that letter, they have at the bottom of the letter, at the bottom of your motion, they have a big ass stamp on it that says granted or denied. I scroll down to the bottom of the letter and I see in big bold letters, denied. So I took a breath, went back up to the beginning of my case and read the motion and her rebuttal and her decision. And at the end, I felt all the air leave my lungs. And that was the first time. It was in 2004. So I've only been down, 98, 2004, so 6 years at this time. But what kept me going prior to this was that I still had an opportunity to get back in court and maybe get some time knocked off, But when I got that letter from her, I felt the wind leave my body. And for the first time, I was faced with the reality that I'm going to be here. I'll be here for a good minute. And then when I started thinking about that, that's when I felt that darkness come and wrap itself around me. That feeling of panic started building up and hopelessness. I never felt those emotions, those feelings until that time. Because when you're in a space where you feel you have no hope, like I'm not even sure how to describe it, it's dark. And visions started going through my head about what I can do to not have to do the next 20 years, right? But I'm grateful that I had the sense or the consciousness to snap myself out of it. And I always tell you, like, me being able to survive the penitentiary through all those years didn't really have anything to do with me being a badass, or being tough, or being a man or anything like that. Those all played a role in it. But I really do believe that there was something that was greater than me that was watching out for me. For what purpose they wanted to keep me alive, for what purpose they wanted to help me return back to the world, I'm still discovering that. But I really believe that I had a guardian angel, for the lack of a better word, that looked out for me. And I felt that presence. And I snapped out of it. And when I snapped out of it, I was angry. I was mad. Not at my situation. I was angry and mad that I allowed an outside force, which is the courts for this conversation, to break me in that moment and put me in that dark place. So from that moment on, that's when I determined to do what I needed to do to make it back home. And I'm here speaking to you now, so I was able to overcome that dark moment. But I know a lot of people that was not able to. And my thing is, I always tell, people I have conversations with out here, it's like, if you're a big homie, and if you really say that you love your little homies, you've been where you've been. Being locked up, being in a cell, stomach rumbling, growling, hoping for a soup, some, them cold ass cell with one sheet, one thin ass blanket, and they turn on the air, You know, they do that shit on purpose to keep your ass in bed so you're not walking around in your cell. They make it as uncomfortable possible as possible for you because it's a psychological warfare. Everything they do in the penitentiary is designed to break you down and make you submissive. So when you do get let out of the shoe, you're gonna be like, man, that shoe was so miserable, man. I don't want to do anything wrong anymore out here. If somebody punked me, I'm just gonna let them punk me. I ain't gonna retaliate. I ain't gonna stand up for myself because I don't want to go back in that box. So it's a form of torture. Yeah, they're not beating my ass every single day, but just imagine you being subject to that form of torture for a span of 20 plus years, right? Now you coming home, you know that. You experienced that firsthand. So for me, if you really care about your peoples, these young dudes out here, my question is how can you encourage them to participate in activities that will lead them into that freaking place of darkness, place of hopelessness? You know, I always ask my friends out here, you have a son. Do you want to be out here while your son's doing 20, 30 years for something that you sent him to go do? And of course, the answer is always no. So then I hit him with, well, if you don't want your kid to be in that situation, why do you feel it's okay to have somebody else's kids in there? You know, my objective out here is to help some of these kids understand what they're signing up for. But you know, talking to those youngsters, I told them, like, if you sign up for it, sign up for it. Because I don't love no busters. I don't love no rats. And I'm not out here preaching to be a dropout or any of that. You know, for me, I'm not moving away from my homies or running from my homies. I'm living a different life. But the life that I'm living now, I want to bring my homies with me. You know, and I try to give them, you know, I try to express it in a way like, you got a crew out there. If you guys really care about each other, I want you to take that energy, that loyalty, that honor, that love that you guys have for each other. Find a way to pivot so that you guys can be out here in the world with each other, to enjoy each other's company, to attend each other's weddings, to be there for your homie's child being born, when your homie's child is graduating. But most importantly, to be there for your parents. You know, like I said, I don't know if my experience, if things that I say to these youngsters is going to resonate with them, but that's what I'm about, man. And I know you guys came here for a USP story because I started out with welcome to the USP. I'll have one for you tomorrow, but that is a USP story that I'm sharing today. And the story that I'm sharing today is about the misery of it and the fact that I wouldn't want to wish that on my worst enemy. And that I hope that I can find a way to maybe save some of these youngsters from that experience. But you know, for the viewers out there, you don't have to be part of a nonprofit organization. You don't have to be part of anything. to be a positive role model, to be a positive, to have a positive impact in your community. If you see some youngsters out there having a bad day, man, let's give them a conversation. Because a lot of these youngsters running around, people just talk to them. People don't talk with them. There's really no conversation. There's always the finger in the chest telling them they're doing this wrong, that wrong, and that. Ain't nobody trying to hear that shit. They already know they fucking up. They don't need you to remind them of that shit. Talk to them as a person. With that being said, I believe every single one of us out here that wants something better in our community can play a role. There's no role that is too small. There's no role that is too big. The most important role is making that effort, making yourself available, and being present. Thank you.